How would you like to earn more money and not just traffic, links, and shares from your SEO? Hi, I'm Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking with Kerry Campion, who is an SEO copywriter who founded God Save The Serp. Being an SEO, Kerry knows more than just writing great copy that Google and humans love. She works on content marketing that increases traffic and sales. And in this podcast episode, Kerry and I specifically talk about what SEO copywriting is, what it consists of, and why you need it for your website. Then we dive into her 4-pillar content marketing strategy, which takes up most of the podcast because it's absolutely excellent. We talk about the different types of content that you must be creating for your blog to ensure the perfect combination of link building, traffic, social shares, distribution, and sales. We also talk about how and why we should be creating content for disabled people to ensure they have a great experience consuming our content and what we can do to ensure we can create that type of content and change our content to cater to those people that do have reading impairments and other disabilities consuming content on the internet. We also talk about how to find the words that you should be using in your copy on your website, through all your blogs, through everything you say and your branding and everything based on your audience data and why that's key. Now, I share a story around this on how we do it and how it's worked for me. When Kerry also shares a story on how it's worked for her too. There's so much more value in this podcast episode. I know you're absolutely going to love it. If you own any online business and need to know how to create content, then you're absolutely going to love this podcast episode. Let's dive into it. Do you want to build or grow your content website? Niche website builders have helped hundreds of people to take their content websites from a few $100s per month to over tens of thousands of dollars per month with crafted content creation, buying aged domains, and link building strategies. These strategies have helped people increase their traffic, authority, monthly earnings, and their website valuation too. Head to nichewebsite.builders/BOB/ to get 10% off any link building or 10% more from their content creation services. That's nichewebsite.builders/Bob/. I'll put a link in the description too. Kerry, welcome to the Bob podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited. We're trying to work this out for a while. we finally got a day at a time.
Life, it gets
Yeah.
crazy sometimes, doesn't it? We had a pre-chat and I was really excited by some of the discussions and some of the topics that we decided we dig into. But for those who don't know who you are and what you do, you're known for SEO Copy. Like, I just want to unwrap that a bit. People might be going, what is SEO Copy? So yeah, what is that?
Yeah. So actually, it's kind of an interesting time at my business as well, because we're kind of doing a kind of pivot. It's still the same thing. I'm an SEO copywriter and content marketing strategist. So essentially what SEO copy is kind of content on your website. So your web pages, your blog content that is specifically written and designed. I don't want to say just for search engines because it has a bad reputation, but in such a way that it makes it easier for Google to understand what your content is and what you're actually talking about. So yeah, it's essentially optimizing it usually around a keyword, around a certain topic, and yeah, trying to get that content to get ranked better in Google.
Okay,
and other
cool.
search engines, of course, but usually we're talking about Google.
Yeah, of course. So you also said it's not just structured for Google. We want to make sure it's structured for user experience as well, which is going to be good for Google anyway. What goes into the structuring of a good article or a good blog post? Is it's around the main keyword, right? And then you have sub keywords, LSI keywords, whatever you want to call them, and then you have H2s and stuff like what are some of the things? Like, that's just very broad. Most people know what I've just said, but I'm sure you've got some more in-depth explanations around what that sort of looks like.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that the more sophisticated Google and search engine becomes, the closer what they require to actually, rank a page is closer to what kind of people want and expect, whereas before it was just, oh, plug your keyword X amount of times, and boom, you'll you'll get an article.
Mm.
So one of the ways I like to kind of get people to think about it is, so in an article you have what's known as, for instance, a title tag. So that's essentially what shows up when you type something in Google and you read like the titles of all the pages. That's the title tag. Then you have like a little description underneath it. That's the meta description. So usually before, it was super easy to manipulate. You would have just written, I don't know, margarita pizza recipe. Click this article to read a delicious, margarita recipe. But imagine if someone clicked on that and the actual content was about like cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah.
Like all Google had to go on was like the title tag and the meta description. That would be ridiculous, right? So they need other indicators. They need, other kind of clues as to what your content is about. So that's what's quite important about, well, kind of what you just mentioned. Those, I just like to refer to them as like associated words. Like that's your kind of LSI keywords and things like that. So
Yeah.
essentially, if you're talking about margarita pizza, well, I also expect in that article words like dough,
Cheese.
tomato, cheese, mozzarella, blah, blah, blah. You kind of expect all these sort of related terms. And that's, I mean, there's not a great art to that, because if you're talking about that topic anyway, you should be including those words relatively naturally. So yeah, that's kind of a big one, just to make sure that you're covering a topic with enough depth, that you're covering also those related keywords that if you're talking about that topic, they should be there naturally anyway.
Mm.
So there is a tool that I really like to use for this called Phrase. That's frase.io. So that's essentially like a tool to optimize your content. You can optimize it as well around those types of related keywords and things like that. So for me, that's kind of where we're more moving to. So yeah, making sure that you're covering a topic in enough depth that you're bringing in those other words, especially because certain keywords can have two meanings. Like for instance, there's like a deck, which I don't know if our American friends call it this, but like a deck in like your garden, like those little, like the wood kind of,
like a porch.
Yes, that's like deck that, or you can have like a deck of a ship, so all those kind of like related keywords just help Google understand, okay, so it's about a deck on a ship, right? Not in like your garden. Or one of my articles is about case studies, but I realized I wasn't clear enough that it was business case studies, customer success stories, because when you look at the search engine results page, there's also academic case studies, scientific ones, and it wasn't quite sure where I was really talking about, because I wasn't talking about those other things as well. So that's a big one. On the other more technical side, I mean, you kind of mentioned the user experience and things like that as well. So we have different headings in a page. So we have like the big heading, that's like the H1, that's kind of, imagine like the title of your article. We have our H2s, which are like subheadings, and H3s are the subheadings of H2s. It's kind of like those Russian dolls, like each one kind of fits into each other. So using those correctly, I mean, for me, it's not that it's going to have like a huge effect on SEO, but it's going to make for a better reading experience. It's going to make your writing more organized. So that's kind of, where I'm thinking about the true value that they actually have. And then, like I said, I mean, Google kind of likes what people like. I mean, nice paragraphs that are like, not 16 lines long. This is the internet. This is not Tolstoy. It's people want digestible information. They want bullet points. They want images, graphics, videos. So I mean, all of those things kind of really come together to make a great article. And it's essentially thinking about what makes a great reading experience. And then, that's essentially what Google wants as well.
It's a good word, reading experience. Nobody wants to jump on the internet and see text like they see it in the Bible. Right,
exactly.
That's just crazy. And as our attention span just gets like faster and faster, We need those different types of content to give ourselves a break because we're getting lazy these days with how we
Yeah.
consume things.
Exactly. And having related images as well. I mean, that's also good for SEO because that's good for image SEO. Like one thing that happened to me the other day, and this was absolutely was not thinking about SEO whatsoever when I uploaded this, but it just shows you like just the knock-on benefit that you can have. So I have an article about how to become an SEO copywriter because I have a course for copywriters who want to specialize in SEO copywriting. And so I did like a little quote graphic of David Ogilvy's, like the OG of copywriting and advertising world, kind of madman type figure. And it was just like,
Cool.
yeah, I think the description of the image was something like David Ogilvy quote. Yeah, the alt tag, which is just a little short description of what the image is. I think I just put the actual quote in itself. Well, it got picked up by Copy Blogger and like one of their presentations,
Right.
and it was a branded graphic, like it had my logo on it, and I was like, oh my god.
Congrats.
Like, that's what that was. I know I was, and it was actually a presentation that I was watching, and I just like saw it pop up. I was like, that's my image. That's my branded image being shown to like thousands of people.
That's when you've made it. When you're watching something and you pop up and you're like, yeah, I've made it.
I was like, yes, thank you, Canva, for that template.
I had a similar thing happen to me the other day. I was going through a Facebook group and I was like showing a client what to do in this Facebook group with buying sites and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was me just like, boom, like with my big headshot and in the way. I'm like, fuck, this is kind of embarrassing. Like I'm trying to show you this and I'm just in the way. Like good stuff though. So yeah, imagery, coming back to that image, having the right alt text and so having a description as well is going to help it.
Yeah. So actually, I've been trying to sort of up my knowledge more on accessibility. So accessibility basically refers to making your content more accessible for people with certain disabilities. So particularly when we think about that, and this is absolutely not like the only disability out there, but I'm thinking a lot about people who use what's known as screen readers. So people who are blind, who can't see the internet, they have basically a machine that reads the content to them. I actually had an expert come in with on my membership, for copywriters, and give like a presentation on this. And one thing I was always like, how can we do better alt text? Because usually alt text sucks. It just, it's
basic.
Traditionally,
very basic.
Yeah, and it's traditionally just been a place where people try to like stuff a keyword in, delicious margarita pizza, Manhattan pizza, it's just
exactly.
It's ridiculous. So this alt text, it's basically like people who use screen readers, they can have an image described to them. So actually what she was telling me was it can be just as basic as possible, like woman smile, blah, blah, blah. But what you can actually leverage as well is the caption. So for things like, for instance, if you're doing like a quote graphic, I would probably do like the alt text, David Ogilvy, killer poet quote. And then in the caption, I would actually write the full quote. Or if it's like an infographic, I would, try to maybe summarize some of like the key points. Like with a client, I was working on one of his pages. We had an infographic. It was like average salary of, SDR in the US. And so I kind of just put in the caption, like the average salary across all the states or something like that. All of these things, they make it more accessible for people. And again, Google wants accessible content. It doesn't want, if someone can't access your content, well, then why should it be on the first page of Google, essentially? So thinking about accessibility, especially around images, there's so much more. But yeah, that's like a big one that I think people have never really understood what alt text and sort of the, how to present an image what it actually entails.
So let's talk more about accessibility with our content. Because that's the way you're saying Google is leaning towards having content that's accessible to everybody, even if they have impairments in how they consume content, and it can change and differ from person to person. What are some of the other ways? Is it just looking at text and making sure we've got a description and the alt text is really good to cater to those people, or are there some other things that we can do as well?
Yeah. So again, like I'm not an expert, but I have learned, a few tips and tricks along the way, just because I have a great network and I'm very lucky to benefit from all these people. So one thing that I realized that I was guilty of was having the same call to action. So call to action is like the text on like a button on a website. I was very guilty of having the same one all the way
On every
through,
page.
or I was guilty of making the call to action dependent on reading the copy before it. It was almost like a continuation. You're like, okay, yeah, I want blah, 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 blah. But it wouldn't have made sense if you hadn't read the copy first.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons why that's less accessible is because sometimes people with screen readers, they actually skim content based on the links. So they actually read like the calls to action as a way to like skim the content. So imagine if you have, like your main services pages, say, and for me, it might be like website copy, content marketing strategy. Well, if both of those calls to actions to go to both of those pages is the same, the person with the screen reader doesn't actually know where they're going to go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
Or like,
they could just think let's skip it, really.
yeah, like if it's learn more, and they're scanning the links, they're like, well, learn more about what,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So that was one thing that was quite eye-opening to me. I hadn't really thought about that before. Of course, as a person, who's privileged and doesn't have any disabilities, that was very eye-opening for me. I was like, oh my god, yeah, like I didn't even think they would have scanned content like that.
Yeah.
But I think when you think about it, I think we kind of do it too. Like we kind of like see a colored button, and like our eyes kind of go to it. We're just less aware of it.
I definitely notice it when I'm reviewing like some content on an affiliate post,
Mm-hmm.
and there will be just the image and the text and the bullet points, and I'll just skip past one. I'll read a bit, and then I'll just skip past one to go to the next one, then go to the next one, and just like definitely use it as a way to skim.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd never thought about that before until this accessibility expert gave like a workshop to our members. Or another thing I had no idea was apparently forms are very hard to navigate for people with screen readers.
Yeah.
So maybe a typical kind of contact form. So, instead of having only one way for people to contact you, you can also say, oh, here's my email as well. If that, if you would rather not use a form, because, there may be like accessibility issues. Another thing as well is actual, sometimes even just like the language, like the copy itself. This is one thing, again, so you don't realize how guilty you are of this until someone kind of points it out. But I was reviewing one of my email sequences, and it said something like "poke the pink button below." And then I was like, "Oh, well, obviously someone can't see colors, poke the pink button below." So to kind of take out that language that's dependent on a certain sense, or that someone might not actually have.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, just little things like that, and I think as well, just giving people options is always good for user experience in general, like that. Like, don't just have a form, have like an email there as well, because if someone can't navigate your form, or even if there's just a problem with it, which sometimes happens,
it's pretty regular actually.
It's a very regular occurrence. Exactly. Like the amount of times I've had people email me saying like, oh, I tried to get your form and it was offline, or because I use are you familiar with ClickUp project management system?
Yeah.
So I use their forms to kind of, for my contact forms.
Okay, got ya.
But sometimes it would just disappear for no apparent reason. And so I was like, oh, thank God I had like my email there at least,
I didn't even know ClickUp was a thing for lead capture. There you go.
I was like, they have forms, and I was like, I could use this for lead capture, because then it automatically creates a task, for me. So it doesn't get like lost in my email, so that's kind of where I was thinking it. But because I'd included an email, people were still able to get in touch if they couldn't.
I'm very glad I've got my email on my contact page now.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's something I think a lot of people are resistant to, and then you're thinking, well, you could actually be losing leads because of it, or making it less accessible.
I think it's just crazy. I give people my email in all of my content. Just email me, like ask me questions. Like if you need help, reach out and get it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I don't really, I guess it's like you really hate email, but I mean,
Well,
yeah,
you
I don't really
just
get it
get someone
either.
to help you with it. If you get too many leads, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. Just hire a virtual assistant. They're
Yeah,
done.
exactly.
Yeah,
So I
and
want to
then
talk about your four-pillar content strategy or four-pillar strategy for content marketing. Yeah, I don't know. Just dive into that. What does that look like? Because
yeah.
I
So
know you're a
generally,
content marketing strategist. What does this pillar strategy look like? And then I guess we'll evolve into more questions as you explain.
yeah. So generally speaking, this is one I tend to use a lot with. I mean, it's kind of the basis for like everyone, but it's just a very what I like about it is it's quite simplified because you kind of divide your content into these pillars, into these like buckets, because it can be quite overwhelming to be like, oh my god, like what did I write content on? You could it's a jungle out there. There's so many options.
Mm,
So I like to think of content in these kind of buckets. So there's content that builds links. There's
yep.
content that is more likely to generate social shares. Content that's more likely to rank on Google. So kind of more geared towards optimizing around certain keywords and things like that, and content that generates sales. So those are the kind of four buckets that I would put in. I would put content in. So content that generates links is super important. A lot of people kind of say, "Oh, I built this website with no link building, and oh, look at it, it's amazing." Mostly they don't, they don't disclose that it's an aged domain that already had a bunch of links and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can
This is
still happen.
I've seen this so regularly where people, because I see a lot. It's very big now, right? Buying a site with buying an H
Right.
domain and building content on it. I see so many sites for sale that my clients are sharing with us that it's just got this massive DR and
Hmm.
the site's like a year old. I'm like, hang on, like what do you mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait,
did
wait,
they
wait.
buy this?
Let
And
me.
they go, oh yeah, they went back and asked the question like, oh yeah, they bought this, and we found out like, oftentimes this is crazy. I want to share this with people as well,
Okay.
so I'm just gonna steal the microphone for a bit.
No, no, no. Go
When
on.
people do that and they build, usually they're a rookie, and they'll buy an H domain and build a bunch of content on it. And I get them to ask a certain set of questions like, did you buy this as an H domain? If so, how much? What was the DR when you purchased it? And then
Hmm.
you can look at the DR of what it is now.
Yeah.
And usually we see that there's a decline because
Ah.
the content isn't great or the website's not great, which is very interesting. Very interesting.
That's very interesting. So I don't think people talk about that enough. People kind of think like once you have a certain domain ranking, like a certain domain authority, like that's it, and then it can only increase. But yeah,
Well, it's
no,
just something that I have seen from association of being in the space,
right.
and yeah, I think it's quite fascinating. But I stole the microphone. I want to give it back to you.
No worries.
On yeah, people saying, "Hey, I built this site," and it just generates a bunch of links. But was the site based on this link generating content? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean just generally speaking, that sometimes people there's kind of like a debate. People can say, "Oh, link building's dead." I mean, every year you have something is dead within SEO. SEO is dead.
Oh yeah, sure
But
thing.
yeah, there's kind of like this debate about like, oh, link building's dead. You can generate mad traffic with no links. I'm not buying it personally. You can definitely get traffic without having a ton of backlinks, but
Yeah,
generating backlinks is really important for SEO. And the way I kind of explain this is it's like a vote of confidence from the internet. Like people are
yeah,
linking to your site, especially from well-respected websites. With like high DA websites that maybe even have like a .edu. Oh, those
yeah.
are those are the
Of
golden
course.
eggs of links. Respected sites. I mean, that's pretty impressive. That's gonna like give a little nudge to Google that it's a trustworthy site, and
Yeah,
also Google discovers content by following links. So if a very authoritative website, they are going in regularly and indexing it and crawling it, and if they see links to your website, well, then that's a way for them to discover your content.
mm,
So link building is important, and there's a ton of ways to build links, and a lot of it is very manual. So it's for instance, like the reaching out to journalists for quotes and pitches, to be in their articles, and kind of like a digital PR.
yeah.
But there's this really like horrible, demotivating side of link building, which is like, the typical, oh, I read your article, I really loved it, I've written a similar article,
Yeah.
like, would
Never
you
had a
link to
dig.
me? And
Yeah, it's so annoying.
I mean, I think the only time, I'm being quite skeptical with that, but I mean, I think really the only time like that type of outreach works is if you already have a lot of leverage. So you could be like, okay, I see you have an article on this. Would you link to my article? Oh, by the way, I'm a writer for like moz.com, and I can link to your site.
Yeah.
I think like that's the only time it really works.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are told like, oh yeah, just copy this like cold email template and send it to everyone, and you'll get links. And I've never seen that really.
Well, it's just crazy. That's 15 years ago type stuff.
Right.
And
exactly.
That's still being taught in courses, and it's disgusting.
Completely. And again, from people who already have a huge network, lots of influence. And yeah, if they send an email to someone and they can say like, oh, I've got this massive website I can link to, well, yeah, of course you're going to build links. But like your average person, like, no.
Yeah.
So personally, I prefer much more like, digital PR route. But then as well, you can build content, or you can build links from content, because there's certain content that people are searching for specifically to link to something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few different types, but I mean, I'll go into one which is really typical, which is stats, any kind of reports or statistics. People love linking to statistics, even when they're nonsense. Like that statistic, what is it? For every $1 you spend in email marketing, you get 43 back. Such a bad study. It's really old, tiny sample size. I didn't know
this stat or a quote.
Oh God, really? Oh,
I had no idea.
I hear it one more time. Like, I don't think anyone has ever been able to link to the original source of data because it's so like circulated now.
Whoever believes that is completely ignorant to reality of every single marketing campaign, even within your own business, has a different ROI.
Exactly. And I've seen big, respectable like companies, like tout that stat. It's like, have you actually seen this study from there? It was a tiny sample size from years ago, and lots of other issues with it. But it's because people are looking for statistics, proof that basically prove them right? Like an email marketer, we're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna link to that stat, and I'm gonna make sure everyone knows it. So producing your own statistics and your own data can be really like powerful for SEO, because people link to it. That's why you see a lot of websites with like email marketing statistics 2022 and all those types of articles. The problem is most people don't have access to an audience that's big enough to kind of to survey and to produce data that's decent. So one way around this, two ways actually, is leveraging other people's audiences. So for instance, let's say your market is copywriters, and you want to create a study, say based around the average rates that copywriters are charging or something like that, but you don't really have enough people in your audience to have enough data to be able to like publish it. You could actually reach out to kind of influencers in that space who they've got like a lot of followers who are copywriters, people in their email list, particularly their email list, and you can literally pay them to diffuse your study, your survey. So I mean, you would need a budget for that, but it can be really worth it, because if you are able to get enough responses to actually build out like a study, like the links you can build to that, especially with the right distribution tactics, can be really incredible. So reaching out to different influencers, asking them to share your survey and things like that for like a fee, could definitely be worth it. And then if you have like some sort of digital product as well, you could like give people for free if they take part, to kind of incentivize it as well, because who's like, oh yeah, I feel like taking a survey today.
Always give a gift to our members, a really good gift when I ask for feedback on how to make our membership better. So that's one pillar. And there's the three others. Let's dive into those three others.
Yeah, so hopefully the others won't be quite as long.
But that's fine. We need to unpack them.
So yeah, the other one that makes sales. So this one, it sounds kind of obvious, but like, this is your content should kind of be looked at in kind of like a funnel, right? So you kind of have that top of funnel content. So that's people who like, they're kind of trying to solve a problem, but they don't really know much about the solutions yet. I always use my dog as an example for this concept of, the funnel. Like my dog is reactive with other dogs. So she sometimes acts like a psycho on the street when she sees like a big dog. So
Mm.
my, top of funnel content for trying to sort that was, why is my dog barking and lunging at other dogs? I didn't really like
Yeah.
know why it was happening. And it was how to help reactive dogs, because I'd done some research and I learned, oh, reactive, that's like the word that they use for that. So that was kind of like
Yeah.
my problem searches.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like your top of funnel ones. And the further we get down there, the more ready people are to buy. So for instance, for me, it was, I discovered a course for reactive dogs. And so I was starting to look at things like clicker training for reactive dogs, online courses for reactive dogs, because I was starting to say like, okay, these can be a solution to help me solve this problem. So yeah, when we're talking about content that makes sales, it's really like those types of searches, that either it's kind of reviews, so I have like Spirit Dogs review, right? Which is probably someone who's got like an affiliate article and has written, good review on it. So those are kind of like the ones that I refer to when I talk about content that makes sales. To give an example from my own website, so I have a article that does really well because thankfully there's not that much competition. Is best SEO copywriting courses, and
Yeah.
that was one of those ones like zero volume keyword or like super low volume. I can't remember exactly, but I said, well, it's still worth it for me because it's content that could generate a sale. So
Yeah.
what I did there was I directly compared my course with other courses that are on the market. I put mine first, obviously.
Of course.
Of course. But it wasn't even like a ranking. It was just like, okay, 1, 2, 3, just giving people the options. Yeah, so I directly compared myself with competitors. A lot of people don't want to do that. And I say, well, if you're not going to do it, someone else is going to do it. And they're
Yeah.
going to make their course look better than yours. And, why wouldn't you want to take
Yeah.
charge of that conversation and actually present your course as you want to present it? And so I can't remember exactly how much traffic that's generated in the last couple of months that it's been live. Not even that much, maybe like 400 hits or something like that. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But a couple of weeks ago, it just made me a sale. Like someone literally went from that blog post
Yeah.
to my Podia and bought it full price. And it's an €897 course. And it just blew the hair off my head. I was like, I know that this works. Like but
Yeah.
to experience it yourself is just like, it's the closest I've ever felt to passive income, where it was just like, I was just out there living my life. And then, this person, I was like, I don't know this person. Because usually people who come to my courses, I have some contact with them. Like I kind of, they're on my email list, right?
Yeah.
I know them, I've maybe spoken to them, had a call or something. But this one was just completely like, random. And then, I did a bit of digging and realized that was where they just Googled that, found my blog post, bought the course.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's anyone who has any type of course, even membership, kind of digital products. I mean, you need to be comparing yourself with your competitors and kind of taking charge of that conversation. So that's kind of one of the ways that you can generate sales directly from content. Another way, like for service providers as well, is like best web developers in Chicago.
Yeah.
And people who are searching for that, like they're pretty like, okay, yeah, I want to hire this person. Like there's kind of no two
So
ways about
this is
it.
this is what other bloggers will call high intent keywords. It's
Right,
people
exactly.
that are ready to purchase.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the sales one, and then also the link building. Those two pillars. What are the last two pillars?
So last ones are content that ranks. So essentially that's our Google content, right?
Yeah.
Which can be like the hardest one for people to build content around because they're not sure what keywords they should target. They're not sure what's too competitive for them, what's not competitive enough, what's worth their time. Is my audience really searching for this? It's kind of difficult. So when it comes to, I always say SEO does not start with a keyword research tool. SEO starts with your customers. So really understanding that journey, that customer journey, is so important. because that understanding that customer journey is going to later inform your keyword research, is going to inform what type of content you need to produce. So I always say, like, if you haven't already, you need to get on calls with people. Like, you need to actually like sit down and have this scary face-to-face moment where
Just to get to
you're
know your market, right?
right. Exactly. I feel
Yeah.
like it's you could do surveys as well, so like kind of
Mhm.
surveys face-to-face, but really there's for me there's nothing that really compensates for like the market research interview. It tends to be easier if you already have some customers, or if you can again incentivize people, like maybe they get a free module from your course or something. Definitely, I always tend to incentivize people because they're giving you your time. But generally speaking, what's good about people who've already gone through maybe your program or your course is that they know you, and a lot of people are very flattered if you just kind of tell them like, oh, I consider you like a dream customer, and I want to attract more people just like you. And usually people are like, that's like enough. They're like, oh, okay, yeah. They're like quite flattered by that.
One way
So
that we do it is I don't want to, once people are in my sphere and in my community membership or bought any of my products, after that phase, after they've joined, I don't like what they say about the market and what they want has changed because they've learnt from me on the inside. So the words that they use on the inside are very different to the words they use to find me and discover me. So
absolutely.
what I like to do is I like to ask, just as people join, like, how do you discover me? What are your goals? And what is all this sort of stuff that what are you looking
Yes,
to achieve? It's really good for me and us and our business to be able to help people move them towards their goal. But what's super valuable is us taking and pulling those words out that they do use
absolutely.
and put that into our content. Like, what people want to
Exactly.
do is they want to replace their income. Most people say, I don't go to tell people and teach people, hey, I want to help you buy a business. Nobody wants to buy a business because it costs money and it costs time, but they do want to
Right.
replace their income. Right at the start, I was like,
Yes,
I'm going to teach you how
it's a
to buy a
brilliant
business.
example.
They don't want that, yeah. But what
Exactly.
they,
They're not ready for that yet.
no,
They're exploring options about
yeah,
replacing their income. And then the more aware they become is how do you buy, a website, or how do you invest in websites? And it kind of
hmm
gets more and more aware until, like you said, they're in those high intent keywords. That's a brilliant point actually. And you reminded me that, yeah, one thing I do with both my courses is I have an intake form for that
yeah,
exact same reason.
yes.
Because it's helpful for them because it actually helps them kind of focus, and like it actually I think
What's
helps
their
them
intention is when they come into what's their intention for what they want to get out of the course, right? Yeah.
exactly. And I think it kind of like, yeah, it's a little micro commitment, right? Like you've actually taken the time, like you've bought this, and we know people buy courses all the time that just like rots away and digital dungeon somewhere, no one ever. But I feel like with like the intake form, they're really like clarifying their intentions and why they've actually bothered to
Mm,
show up and get this thing. So it's helpful for them. But exactly what you say, it's brilliant voice of customer research
mhm.
for that beginning phase as well. That's why, like, I always recommend course creators and stuff that they have some sort of intake form, because I mean I've gotten gold from that intake form, like things
Yeah.
that I never really even knew were valuable to people, that I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, like
Yeah, I learnt this from a guy a couple of years ago from Dart. I think his name's John. I forget his last name, from Data Driven Marketing, and he was on the
mm,
podcast as well
ah,
a couple of years ago. But yeah, such a good way to really get customer data and pull that and use it in your marketing, not just everywhere in your marketing, just litter it through it.
copy
It should be
particularly,
part
because
of your
you
branding. Yeah,
right, because like in your copy as well, it's like you need to be using the same words as them so that they actually
correct.
identify themselves as, oh, they're actually speaking to me, because that's why I describe this. It's an example I always use, and again, just to link it back to keywords, is sometimes you have the curse of knowledge. You're in like the jargon all the time, and you're in like this world, and sometimes your customers aren't. So imagine you're a photographer and you have a beginner's photographer course, and you think, oh, everyone wants the bokeh effect, everyone's asking me about that, I'm going to write an article, how to achieve the bokeh effect in photography. But here's the problem: people who use the word bokeh, or they already know about photography, right? What people are actually asking when they're beginners, which is the target market, is how do I get a blurry background in my photos?
Mm,
So you can see like how one article or the other can pull in a completely different
Exactly.
market about the same topic. So that's why
Exactly.
knowing that market is key to understanding your keyword research.
Yeah. So that's content that ranks. What's the last one?
The last one is content that generates social shares. So
Ah,
this is super underrated, I think. Yeah, I feel like there's kind of been a shift away from kind of content like distribution and sharing in social media. I think people think like, oh, article, it should rank on Google, and I'm like, there's so many things you can do with an article.
mm,
You shouldn't just be writing SEO content. So one of the reasons I like using content that generates social shares is because it's a way to get exposed to other people's audience, which is super important. And in the beginning, you're not going to get a lot of traffic from Google. Like that's, you're, it's
you're
just,
starting
it's going
out.
to take,
You
it's
don't
going
have
to take a
any
while.
authority. You can't be ranking
Exactly.
for hard keywords. Yeah.
Exactly. It's going to take a while. And you need to be showing search engines that this is a real site. People do actually go here. It has some life on it. And that's me poorly paraphrasing John Mueller from Google. I was watching one of his. He does these really great office hour sessions. Where kind of people come in and they ask him questions about changes in Google and stuff. And one person asked him, "Well, I've got a brand new website. What should I be doing to try and bring traffic to this? Because I mean, yeah, okay, I'm creating content that I hope is useful to my audience that will eventually rank on Google, but what should I really be doing?" And he didn't, say, "Oh, well, go out and just create more content or blah, blah, blah." One of the things that he said was, you need to drive traffic to it from somewhere else. Like, because that kind of shows us that, okay, it's legit. There's people going there. It's a thing, there's stuff going on there. And yeah, one of the things we mentioned was obviously social media. So the way I kind of look at this is collaborations, particularly, and user generated content. So, user generated content is basically content that comes from your audience themselves. So, you might maybe have like an interview or you're promoting a certain member, and then they want to obviously share that to their social channels, who's usually filled with the same people in your target market. So, you're getting exposed to them, and then they go and check out the interview, and then they like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this email list, and that kind of gets the ball rolling.
Mm.
um, or for instance, yeah, like I did an interview with someone who is a case study expert, because again, I knew we shared similar audience, and that content made sense on my site. And because whenever you bring other people in with your content, they share it to their audience. So yeah, generating social shares is a big one as well, and
Mm.
it generally comes about, I think, best with collaborations and also kind of silly content. Like, like imagine if I've been sitting on this for ages, need to actually do it, because I have done these types of kind of articles before, but not for my site in particular, but like 19 memes only copywriters will understand. Like
Yeah.
things that really like those
Something funny.
inside jokes. Yeah, like those inside joke, like BuzzFeed kind of like stuff. I mean, you look at
Mm.
BuzzFeed,
Well, they're king of social shares, right? Why not
they're
copy
king of
how they're
social
structuring their
shares.
content?
And it's just dumb, funny
Yeah,
content that like
that's right.
people. It can really be that simple, and it's like because people like to share content that shows that they're in on the joke. You
Yeah,
know
they're on the inside. They get the insider jokes.
exactly. It's why I follow this guy on Twitter. I forget his last name, but it's Dagobert or something. And he does these like hilarious like SaaS founder memes. And like the number of retweets and comments and quote tweets that they get, it's just crazy, because it's just that people like to be on the inside. They like those inside jokes. So
Yeah.
yeah, so sometimes even producing that kind of like BuzzFeedy content, like that can really help generate social shares.
I like it. And so would you have like a percentage split? Would it be an equal 25% of each of
Oh,
those pillars? Or and I guess it would be dependent on the site as well, right? And your brand and what you're about. So I guess that's a hard one to answer, right?
yeah, God. I really couldn't say. I really couldn't say. The only thing is, I mean, when it comes to the sort of SEO content, I tend to focus on topic clusters.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like where you have a main topic, A main topic with a main article that covers something in like a lot of depth,
Yeah.
very authoritative piece of content. And then you create all these little articles that are related to that main topic, and then you kind of link between them. That would be the only thing that I kind of, would have a sort of number on. Maybe we have like a topic cluster of like 12 articles or something like that. But for the other ones, it's so dependent on so many things, and the client and their type of audience, and even just like
the niche
seasonality as well. Niche, exactly. Yeah. So I couldn't really say.
And I guess with those content clusters and the topics, you could put maybe a couple of those in each of those clusters as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I've some topic clusters that I very professionally built out on a notebook, and I've definitely, like, for instance, there's one around like how to become an SEO copywriter, and one that's related to what's in that cluster is how much do copywriters earn. That's kind of an article that I'm building out, and that's obviously in the link building thing. So I kind of think, if you're building out kind of topic clusters, maybe try to include something from kind of all of those pillars, and as well, you just kind of get to know your audience as well, and what kind of works best. I find people, I wrote an article recently about workflows, building out a copywriting workflow. That did super well. Like people were into that. I'm like, okay. So sort of get more ideas about maybe like, teasing this side a bit more, and
This is the best way to grow any business, right? Is to not guess what I should do, or to listen to other people and do what they're telling me to do. But based on the data that you have for your business of what's working, like if that type of content worked, lean into it more. So
yeah, exactly. So it's really just about like experimenting as well. And I think, for instance, there's lots of different variations on it, like maybe if you have an article where you're just kind of sourcing expert quotes. That might be your kind of way to social share, because then you get in touch with those experts again. Hey, the article's live. Here's the link. I would really appreciate if you shared it with your audience. If they are big on Instagram, maybe give them like a little graphic they can put on, their feed or something like that. And that could be your sort of way of doing that. So you do just kind of, like you say, just kind of learn what works for your niche and your market by just experimenting. There is no substitute for that at all. Like, you just need to just produce and test and feel. And like my first pillar post, now I think about it, was kind of dumb, but anyway, it was like how to market your business without social media, because I was like trying to obviously promote search engine optimization. I wrote super like long post, went for like the big pillar thing. I got nothing from that article. Like it just crashed and burned. It's kind of picking up a little bit now. I kind of see people filtering through on it, and I'm just like, God, I've spent way too much time on that, So, but what I actually did once was that's actually one of my sort of pillar posts, is a regular blog post length. It's not this huge mammoth
2,000 plus words.
I mean, it probably is about 2,000, because that's kind of like my usual word count. But and it's quite niche. A lot of people kind of think for your pillar post you need to go for those big authoritative keywords. You don't always. It just, again, if it doesn't make sense for your business, why would you? I have a course for copywriters to become SEO copywriters, so it makes perfect sense that my pillar post would be how to become an SEO copywriter. That's not a particularly competitive keyword or anything, but it gets me like a decent amount of traffic. It brings people on my email list, and that's a regular blog post that I did put effort into, but like, Jesus, it wasn't as much as the how to market without social media. I thought like that was going to be it. No one cared about it. no one cared.
Yeah, it's funny. I've done that with so many pieces of content as well, and just like, why, like, this is so important to me and so good to share it with you, and just, you guys don't care. Like, what? You're missing out. But you got to meet the market where it's at. Kerry, this has been so fun to chat. Thank you so much for coming on. You've mentioned your course. Tell us where we can go away and check out your course, and where people can find out more about what you are doing as well.
Yeah. So my website is God Save The Serp. SERP stands for Search Engine Results Page. It's godsavetheserp.com. You can find everything there about services and my courses. I have a free keyword research course. So it's a 5-day free email course. Which has gotten really great feedback. I'm super happy. I think the kind of thing that people like about it the most is that it's showing you how to do keyword research without spending $114 a month on, these premium SEO tools that you really don't need if you're just doing keyword research. Like there's other ways to do it for like literally the tool that I show you. It's $10 for like a bajillion credits that last you forever. So if you're interested in keyword research, definitely sign up for that. And my course is called SERP Slayer. So that's really for copywriters who want to specialize in SEO copywriting. But the best place to find me, is really on my website, God Save The Serp, Twitter as well, KC de Santiago. I imagine it'll include the links anyway in the in the description. Oh, my Siri just went off. Oh, just listen. I have an Irish Siri, by the way. It's really funny.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Mine is a robot Siri, and it just sounds disgusting, even though I don't use it much.
When I was setting it up, I thought when they were asking about like the accent, they were asking about my accent. So I was like, okay, Irish. And then I, asked Siri something, and I was like, oh, she's speaking to me in an Irish accent.
That's good. Maybe Australia hasn't got the technology yet for an Aussie accent. So I'd love to hear some bogan words. Bogan is like somebody that you'd have to look it up. Look up what a bogan is.
I will.
You will laugh.
I'm intrigued.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you so much, Kerry, for coming on. If you have watched this and listened to this and you think this was valuable, please share this with somebody that you do know that has a content website or an online business that would benefit from some of the SEO principles and strategies and content strategies that we talked about in this podcast episode. Selfishly is going to help us help more people, but it will help you help your friends too. So thanks again, guys, and I'll speak to you on the next one.
Thanks so much. Bye.
This episode of the Buying Online Businesses podcast is brought to you by smbpodcastnetwork.com. This network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focuses on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more awesome shows. Now, if you've discovered this podcast episode today via the network, then I hope you enjoyed the show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss any of our great podcasts.
Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.